Welcome to Chat with the Lawyer. I'm your host, Blegay, and today we have a celebrity in the house, and we're honored to have her, Ingrid Turner. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
No problem. Like what we're going to talk about today, Ingrid also was a former JAG attorney, not to mention she was a former county councilwoman, and she's actually also running for circuit court judge. So this is a very exciting time for her. And she's going to talk about her experience as a JAG officer, rights of military families, the services that can be provided to military families, and also veterans. So this is a very, very important information she's going to provide to us. So tell us how you, tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, well, I grew up here in Prince George's County. Okay. I come from a family of service. My dad served 30 years in the military. My mom was an educator. And I grew up with 3 brothers, so I was the only girl. And being the only girl, I was a little competitive.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's good.
Anything my brothers wanted to do, I wanted to do that too. Okay. So it was very exciting along those lines. And it was kind of, my parents never said I couldn't do what my brothers were doing. And my brothers were competitive in the sense of always wanted to come in first place. Okay. Always wanted to win the trophies. And there was one thing, though, I have to share a quick story. There was one thing that my dad said, Ingrid, we don't want you to do that. That was playing tackle football. He said, Ingrid, you could be the cheerleader. So I was a cheerleader, but I played soccer. I swam on the swim team. And it was about coming in first and doing your best. And my parents exposed us to those opportunities.
Uh-huh. Now, did your brothers do military? Were they also JAG officers, or were they in the military also?
Well, my brothers, 3 of my brothers went in the Army, okay. And I went in the Navy, close to home here, right in Annapolis, Maryland. I went to the United States Naval Academy, but let me actually back up a little bit before that. I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer because in 5th grade, we had what we called a micro society. I don't know if they still have that in the classrooms now, but it's a fantastic civic lesson. We had the opportunity to be president. We had the opportunity to be judges. We had the opportunity to be lawyers, prosecutors, and defense counsel. We also had the chief of police. And my classmates knew that I was fair and intelligent. And they said, are you going to run for president? And I said, oh, no, I'm not running for president. You know what I said I'm going to do?
What you going to do?
I said, I'm running for judge.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So now you're back, you're full circle, right?
Yes.
Some years later. We're not going to
Don't tell them how many years later.
But, some years later. Okay,
Right.
So let's go into, so tell us about a JAG officer. What does a JAG officer do?
Okay. Well, a JAG officer is your military attorney. And when I say that is that you actually have to be a lawyer. You have to have gone through law school, which I'm a graduate of Catholic University of America right here in Washington, D.C. I think you're American, right?
Yeah.
So after I graduated from the United States Naval Academy and got my Bachelor's of Science, the military sent me to get my MBA. Okay. So I got my MBA from Golden Gate University. And then I was lucky enough to get stationed back here in the Washington, D.C. area and go to Catholic University and get my law degree. And as a JAG officer, I was so excited because you get your first cases right out of the box. You get the opportunity to do prosecution. You get the opportunity to do healthcare law because the military sent me back to George Washington University to study healthcare law. You get the opportunity to do administrative law. You get the opportunity to do defense counsel work. And I was so excited. My first duty station as a JAG Corps officer was Treasure Island.
Okay. Now, you said you do healthcare law. Like, explain the type of, like, you gave the general, but like, get into specifics. What type of cases? How would a judge advocate, is that what it's called, judge advocate general or JAG officer?
Okay, so in the military, as an attorney, you do the work of a lot of commands, and you're called a member of the Judge Advocate General's Corps. And so that's for your Army lawyers, that's for your Air Force lawyers, and that's for your Navy lawyers. And we actually provide the legal advice to the commands stationed all over the country. We also provide advice to our sailors, and I say sailors because I'm Navy, but in the Army, they're going to call them soldiers. and their family members. And when I talk about that, let's just talk about when I was in San Francisco. We did prosecution cases, and I'll give you an example. I actually did a jury trial with a kingpin. And when I said a kingpin, this was a drug dealer that was distributing drugs on our ships to our sailors that were responsible for pulling the trigger on some missiles. Wow. And so that's very dangerous, that's very serious. And we don't have a lot of bad apples in the military, right. But when we do have our bad apples, we want to be able to take care of those issues and do the right thing so that we have safety on our ships, safety in our communities.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, and just to clarify so what if you're a soldier or sailor, mm-hmm. just to make it, and you are interested in maybe drafting a will because you have a couple of kids, and you want to make sure that you're doing it right. Can they contact a JAG officer? Should they contact an outside officer? How? Explain that process.
Very good question. Because as a JAG officer, you actually provide 3 types of services we want to talk about. We talk about military justice. We give command advice and what you might want to call in the civilian community, corporate legal advice. And then we also provide and are happy about the ability of providing legal services to our biggest asset. And our biggest assets are our people, the sailors and the soldiers and their family members. So when our family members, especially in the military or especially in the Navy, we deploy for 6 months, we deploy for a year, and we come across dangerous situations. And so we want to make sure that they have in place a will. So we provide a will for them. They come in, they get their free counseling, they get their will drafted and executed. We also can provide healthcare powers of attorney. We can provide financial healthcare powers of attorney, living wills. And even as a retiree or as a spouse, you can come in and get those services at any of the bases here for free.
Interesting. So is there any specific cases where the person, the sailor or its family has to pay?
Oh, for a will, a power of attorney, a financial power of attorney, those services are all free. If you were to go out in the civilian world and get that, you'd pay $2,000, $3,000. Exactly. But it's kind of a benefit that we want to take care of our own soldiers and our own sailors. And even along those lines, say for example, we move all the time in the military. And say a sailor or a soldier wants to have their lease reviewed or a contract reviewed. They come into our offices and review those contracts. And I'm talking again, we have right here in Prince George's County, Andrews Air Force Base. Exactly. You can go right there to the JAG officer. And again, JAG stands for Judge Advocate General's Corps. And those are your lawyers here in the military. And let me just I wanted to share, I'm really proud of this part, is that when I was stationed at what we call the Naval Personnel Command, and that's where all the promotion boards and the separation boards and the sexual harassment cases, we review all those, but there was a group of individuals that had their promotion delayed, and they had lost thousands and thousands of dollars. So I did their petition for over 500 military officers. Wow. And we got all their back pay, and they got their promotion rectified to the advanced date that it should be. And they were so happy because that affects your future promotions if you're delayed at different times.
That's a great story. And actually, what if a military officer or a sailor is feeling that they're being discriminated against based on race, origin? Where would they come to you? Do they come to?
So we have both, because we have in many of our bases we have civilian attorneys and we have military attorneys, okay. But if you're on a ship, say for example sexual harassment, they would come to the JAG officers, they would come to what they call the legal team, and they would report that. But on your civilian, you'd have the EEO office, the Equal Opportunity Office.
Okay, so the EEO office would handle if you were in a base.
More so if you're in a base or if you were the civilian. But if you're the military member, you would go to the military counterpart.
I see. Okay, so that allows clarification. Now, of course, any military, any sailor or soldier that goes to a judge advocate, they might say, this person might tell on me or, like, is there attorney-client privilege there?
Oh, absolutely. All the attorneys that are in the military, they have to be bar certified in at least one state. I'm bar certified in Maryland. I've been bar certified in the practicing attorney in Maryland since '93. Okay. And you maintain that certification, you maintain taking, in some areas, Maryland doesn't require as many CLEs, but in some states you have to take your CLE. But we're federal, we're military, we're regular attorneys performing our legal services in the federal level and for the people that are fighting and making our communities safe.
Okay, so the meaning that if someone comes to you and says, I feel that the general discriminated against me, you're not going to call the general and be like, this is what the person said. Well, you know, it's a matter where you would, you know, represent the person, right?
Absolutely. You have attorney-client privileges just like you do in when you're a solo practitioner or when you have a law firm, and that's on the as a prosecutor side, and that's also for the the defense counsel side. Okay. And so in that regard, when I was a prosecutor, I was presenting the government's case. When I was doing defense work, I'm presenting the defense counsel's work. But also I had the opportunity where I was representing 40 commands all across the Western Pacific. And when I talk about that is that the general, now I'm the general's lawyer. And when I talk about the general's lawyer, that might be simplifying it a little bit too much, but I'm the general's commands lawyer. Okay. So like, for example, if we're going to go into international waters, I have to advise them on that. But let me just tell you about one case that I was actually handpicked because of my temperament, because of my judgment, and because my ability to be fair. Right. When I was in Japan, I was what you call an Article 32 investigating officer.
Which is? And
an Article 32 investigating officer is like a person doing a grand jury investigation. Oh, and so I had to listen to the evidence, and this was a very sensitive case. And the reason why I say it was a very sensitive case, it was a young Marine charged with raping a young international Japanese girl in Japan. So you know how that has a lot of media attention. Yeah. We're visiting in another country, right. And this Marine has been charged with raping this young Japanese girl. And so I have to look at the evidence. I have two lawyers presenting evidence, a defense counsel and a prosecutor, and we have to make a recommendation to what you would call the general, the admiral in the Navy's terminology.
And this is based on all the evidence that comes before you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been working as a judge before now.
Well, as the county council, we sit as the district council too, right?
Right.
And as the district council, we review cases, and as we review cases, that's on zoning rights, right. And those are appeals from the planning board.
Well, we're going to have to come back, and we're going to go into, the services that you all provide to veterans also and the families.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Stay tuned. Thank you.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. Every day, millions of children and adults face orthodontic problems, such as unhealthy bites, misaligned jaws, and poor mouth function. These problems can detract from dental, physical, and emotional health. But long-term health troubles like these can be prevented. Detection and treatment by an orthodontist is the key to correcting these problems and achieving a healthy, beautiful smile. An orthodontist is the only healthcare professional who specializes in the field of orthodontics. These doctors are dentistry's experts, with 2 to 3 years of advanced, specialized education beyond dental school. They straighten teeth and align jaws each and every day by dedicating their practices to the field of orthodontics. A healthy, attractive smile is a priceless asset in life. Put yours in the care of the most qualified professional. For more information, visit braces.org.
Welcome back to Chat with the Lawyer, and I'm here with Ingrid Turner, who is talking about some of the benefits of being in the military and also for veterans. So we're going to jump back into a really important topic. And when we left off, we were talking about some of the things that a JAG officer can provide to military families. So we want to close in on that. Is there any, now you said that there were some other programs that can be provided to JAG officers, to military families?
Well, you know, it's so important. When you are a military member or a family member, we want to take care of our family members. So they can always get legal advice on contracts, they can get legal advice on landlord-tenant issues, they can get advice on, say, for example, though, when I say not even just advice, if you want to, and you're a veteran, you can get a reduced loan for buying your own home.
And so now talk about that. Now talk about the actual veteran benefits that they have because there's so many veterans in this area because of where we are.
Well, yes, you know, here in the Prince George's County area, we have over 70,000 veterans. Wow. So I'm excited about the number of veterans here, but sometimes they don't always know about their services that are available. And then also some of the young people don't know that when you go into the military, you're eligible for what we call the GI Bill. And that GI Bill provides for you to go to school, provides funding for you to get your education or further your education. And I'll use that as an example because the reason why I went into the military was to serve my country, but it also paid for my education. It paid for all those degrees that I was able to continue to study in the community.
And did you have, and just to clarify, did you have to pay anything out of pocket?
You know, when I went to the Naval Academy, actually everybody that goes to the Naval Academy, and I hope the young people hear this, you actually get paid to go to school. So I didn't pay anything out of pocket. And everybody that goes there is on scholarship. Then I went and I got my master's in business administration. I started through the Navy's program, which is available in the Army and the Air Force also, through tuition assistance. But then, and tuition assistance means I paid a portion and the military paid a portion, but I think they actually paid 75% of it at that time. Okay. And then, but then I got into the program and they paid the rest of that. And then they sent me to law school, and I was lucky enough to be one of the ones that they paid for all of my law school. And then I was able to go to George Washington University. But what I want the young people to know, and I want the people that are veterans here to know, that you have services available. If you're a veteran and you were injured while in the military, make sure you put in your claim.
And just so, and this, let's go back a little bit. Now you said that now you were one of the ones that was picked for the law school, for them to pay your law school. So is it something you have to apply for, or? So
good question. Good question. So each of these programs, when I was talking about the Naval Academy, when I was talking about going on to what they call the fully funded law education program, those are actually application programs that, yes, you have to go through an application process. Now let's go back to the GI Bill. You don't have to apply for that. The mere fact that you become a veteran and you served your country, that's a benefit that you get. The mere fact that you're a veteran, you get the free legal assistance, you get the free legal advice, you get your free wills and powers of attorney, and you also get the opportunity to have health care for life.
That's really good. That's really good. Now go back. Now we also want to go back into the Naval Academy. How do you get into the Naval Academy?
Oh, good question. And I hope that more people will take advantage of it, especially more people of African American or more people of color. And the reason why I say that is in my class, we actually started out with 12 women, but we only graduated 3. And so, and that's out of a class size of starting at 1,300 and graduating about 1,000 total class size. But how do you get into the academies? You actually have to apply for a senatorial or congressional nomination. You have to, of course, take your SATs and ACTs, but they're actually looking at making those not a requirement anymore. They look at your GPA, and you have to be involved in the community, involved in sports and extracurricular activities. But there's also the prep school. There's also JROTC and NJROTC.
Yeah, I was in ROTC.
Yeah. You could actually, go in college, because I was thinking about going to Duke University on an ROTC scholarship.
Interesting. Yeah, they do give scholarships. Now, when you said you have to so you contact your senator or the congressman's office and say, I want to apply for the Naval Academy. Is that how you do it?
Absolutely, and the earlier you start, the better. You can't wait to apply for a congressional or senatorial nomination in January. They start at the beginning, in the summertime. So you need to start to do that in the summertime of your senior year. But also, I want people to know that you can be either an officer or you can be an enlisted. Okay, there's two opportunities. So when the recruiter might just say for you, oh, we only want you to be enlisted, ask them about officers, but also take advantage of the enlisted. That's going to give you an opportunity for training. It's going to give you an opportunity to get what we call like a specialty, a trade in the military.
Do you pick your trade, or do they assign you a trade?
Okay, so you go into your recruiter's office and you say, I'm interested in these different trades or these specialty areas, and then you have to take a test. And based on how well you do on those tests, you can go into those specific areas, or they'll say these are the areas that you qualify in. And so sometimes you can stand fast and say, this is the only one I want, and that's good. And you keep, pushing and making sure there's a spot available, because in the military, we just can't take everybody. We have certain allocations in each of the areas. Just like when I said I wanted to become a lawyer.
Right. So did you go in asking them, say, I want to be a lawyer?
Well, when I graduated from the Naval Academy, you couldn't go right into law school. So I had to wait at least 2 years. And between the 2-year and 6-year point, I could apply. And when I applied, they only picked 5 people.
Interesting.
And the first time I applied, I didn't get it. The second time I applied, I didn't get it. For the third time I applied, I got it. But there was only 5 spots, and there was a lot of people applying.
Wow, we like your perseverance. Good, good. Okay, so then you talked a little bit about the home loan. Could you expand a little bit on that?
Yes, I was so excited. I could say that I'm one of the people that get what we call them for short VA loans. It's basically a veteran's loan. And when you talk about that, it's at a lower interest rate. That's also requires less of a down payment when you're going to get your first house.
So you get a down payment assistance from the government?
Well, in a sense, you can call it a down payment assistance, but in the sense, for example, some people might have to come with $20,000. Well, as a veteran, you don't have to come with that $20,000.
Right.
You just get a lower interest. You also get a lower interest rate. Sometimes say the interest rate is at 3%. Our interest rate might be at 1%, or when it's at 6%, it might be at 3%. Right. Because the VA or the government is guaranteeing your loan.
Okay, and then also when you leave the service and you're a veteran and you said you're going to use the GI Bill, how do you go about making sure that the military will pay for your education?
Okay, so if I'm a veteran and I did say I did a 4-year enlistment, or I actually was an officer and I got out after 8 years, or I got out after 10, or even after I retired, you go to the office and you say, I'd like to use my GI Bill, and when you say you want to use your GI Bill, they check to see if you were honorably discharged, they check to see if you're retired, they check your status. If you have a favorable status, they will process your, and when I say process your paperwork, they'll process your paperwork to pay for your school.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, and you have to, of course, show that you've been enrolled and enlisted in a course or a
well, what a lot of people do, and I'll give this as an example of a friend of mine recently. They wanted to use their GI Bill, and the GI Bill now actually even for people pay a living expense. So they went to school using their GI Bill, and they got paid $2,000 to go to school to get his PhD.
Wow, for a PhD program.
Yes.
Okay, so this is not just undergrad.
No, okay. It's master's degree program, it's PhD program, it's your law degree, depending on how you've served in the military, and depending on when I talk about the GI Bill, there's different times that our federal government has increased those benefits or changed those benefits.
Interesting. Okay. Now, another thing is that if you're a veteran and you need assistance or service and legal services, are there services for veterans that you can go and talk to a lawyer for?
Oh, absolutely. And when I was talking in this whole show, when I was talking about a retiree or I'm talking about a veteran, we want to make sure that our veterans are taken care of. So if I'm a retiree, and that means that I've served my country and I've got what we call our ID card that says I'm retired and eligible for our benefits, you can go again to Andrews Air Force Base, you can go to Fort Meade, which is right up the road, even though it's in our neighboring county, and you can get those services for free. But also say I'm a veteran that did a 4-year stint and I did my enlistment, I can receive assistance to fill out my claim, my medical claim, and I can get that at what we call our VFWs, our American Legion.
What is VFW?
Veterans of Foreign Wars.
Okay.
That's a post where prior service members, prior veterans come together, camaraderie, kind of like a sorority. You're a member of a sorority, right?
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, okay. And so it's the same thing when you belong to a post. But it's people that have served their country and they come together and we help each other. So we'll help them navigate the medical claims process.
Interesting. And of course, when you say that medical claims process, do you have to go to a VA hospital? Can you just go, to Prince George's Hospital? Oh,
that great questions. Sometimes you can have a private doctor fill it out for you. There's certain paperwork, but you're not required to go to a VA to prepare that. The VA will provide those forms filled out free of charge. Okay. So if you go to your private doctor, you may have to pay for it yourself.
I see. And then they will reimburse you?
No, not all of the time on that. Okay. So if you're doing the medical claim and you want it for free, you'd have to go to a VA or a military treatment
facility. And if you go outside of the network, you might have to pay out of pocket. Okay, that's interesting. And what about the homeless veterans? Let's talk just shortly about that as we're ending.
Yes, our homeless veterans, we have far too many people that are still suffering from mental health illnesses, homelessness, and our president wants to make sure that we end homelessness. And here in Prince George's County, we have a goal to end homelessness too. Okay. So we want to make sure that here in the state of Maryland, where luckily we have Charlotte's Hall that provides facilities for our veterans, but we need more facilities here. So if you're in need here in Prince George's County, we have a great social services program too. Okay. Social services under our county executive, Mr. Rashawn Baker, and please. They have a person that's there that provides veteran services, veterans advices, right in the office, right on Allentown Road, I think in Camp Springs. I think that's the address.
That is great news, great news. Now, if somebody wants to contact you to get more information about these services, just to get some assistance and help, how do they contact you? Let us know.
You can always contact me by email. My email address is imturner@yahoo.com. So anytime that you're interested in contacting me, also just to provide information from any of the VFWs, any of the social services or family services advices, but also just stop by your recruiter's office. There's a lot of young people, I think, that might be wanting to get a trade or pay for that educational advanced education. Stop by your recruiter's office or give me a call.
All right. Well, and also, if you want to learn more about about this, along with other episodes, you can go to www.chatwiththelawyer.tv, and we have all of our episodes there, including information on getting a lawyer. Thank you.
Where are you headed?
Just gonna hang out.
If any of your buddies ever pressure you to take a drink, just tell them you promised your dad you wouldn't.
I promise. Love you too, Dad.
They really do hear you. For tips on what to say, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.